In a mansion where every wall whispered wealth, one photograph held a secret even money couldn't buy. She wasn't supposed to be there, just a poor child visiting for a school charity event, until fate led her to one picture that stopped her little heart.
Why is my mom's picture in your house?
The question hit like lightning. How could the daughter of a struggling maid recognize a face that only he thought he remembered? What happens next would uncover a past built on kindness and a billionaire's debt that destiny had come to collect. But before we proceed with this amazing story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. We'd love to know that. The morning sun peeks through cracked curtains in a tiny rented room. A soft cough echoes, the kind that tells of tired nights and overworked lungs. Clara Brooks, wearing a faded blue uniform, quietly tucks in her little girl before rushing off to work. Beside her, 5-year-old Elena stirs, her curly hair messy, her tiny arms clutching a worn-out teddy bear missing one eye. She blinks sleepily, then smiles as she hears her mother humming. "Mommy, are you leaving already?" Clara kneels beside her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I have to, sweetheart. But remember what I always say." Elena yawns. Kindness will take you further than money ever will. It was their morning ritual, a promise wrapped in hope. Outside, life was unkind. The streets were rough, the buildings gray, but Elena's world remained bright. She carried her little lunchbox, waving to neighbors, her innocence untouched by hardship. At 5, she didn't understand poverty, she only understood love. At the restaurant, Clara wiped tables with quiet determination. The manager barked orders. Customers barely noticed her. But every time she glanced at the clock, her heart lifted, 1 hour closer to seeing Elena again. Her co-workers pitied her, single mother, barely surviving, but she never complained. To her, Elena was worth every sacrifice. That evening, Clara stopped by the school gate. Elena ran to her, holding a crumpled drawing. "Mommy, I drew you and me in a big house. And there's a man giving us ice cream." Clara smiled weakly. "That's beautiful, baby. If only dreams could feed them." Across the city skyline stood the steel mansion. Marble floors, glass walls, and silence money couldn't fill. Alexander Steele, one of the country's youngest billionaires, sat alone in his office surrounded by success, but no warmth. He had built empires, bought companies, and earned headlines. Yet when the parties ended and the laughter faded, he often found himself staring at a single photograph on his desk, a young woman smiling, holding a child he'd never met. Her name was Clara Brooks. Years ago, before the fame, he'd been lost, a man on the edge of giving up everything. And on a stormy night, Clara's simple act of kindness had saved him. She had offered him shelter, not knowing who he was. She shared her only meal, saying, "No one should go hungry, no matter who they are." He had promised to repay her someday, but he never saw her again. Years later, destiny had its way. Alexander's charity foundation launched an outreach day, inviting children from poor neighborhoods to perform at his estate. That morning, Clara received a notice from Elena's school. Her daughter had been chosen to recite a poem at a billionaire's mansion. Clara smiled proudly. "Go and make them smile, my angel." When Elena arrived, she was dressed in her best, a second-hand yellow dress Clara had mended with love. She clutched her paper tightly, her small voice trembling but full of heart. "Even when days are gray, a little kindness lights the way. Not gold, not fame, not what we own, but love, the seed that must be sown." The room fell silent. Alexander, watching from the back, felt something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Her words echoed Clara's. When Elena curtsied, the billionaire found himself applauding with real emotion. He didn't know why, not yet. After the performance, guests mingled and took photos. Elena, curious and fearless, wandered away from her group. Her small feet led her into the mansion's private gallery. walls lined with portraits of people from Alexander's past. She stopped suddenly. There, above the grand staircase, hung a photo of her mother, much younger, smiling beside a man she didn't recognize. Her heart raced. She tugged at Alexander's sleeve as he walked by. "Sir, why is my mom's photo in your mansion?" The room froze. Alexander's hand trembled. His gaze lifted to the picture, the one he'd kept for years out of gratitude and guilt. "What did you just say?" he whispered.
Why is my mom's picture in your house?
"That's my mommy," Elena replied innocently. "She says kindness makes the world better. Do you know her?" Alexander's composure shattered. He knew her all too well. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. The question lingered in the air like thunder after lightning. Alexander stared at the photograph, his heart pounding. The little girl's eyes, wide, innocent, and familiar, mirrored those of the woman in the picture. He crouched slowly, meeting Elena's gaze. "Sweetheart, what did you say your name was?" "Elena. Elena Brooks." The world seemed to tilt. Brooks. Clara Brooks. Alexander's breath caught. He turned away, struggling to find words. Could it be true? Could this child really be hers? Elena tilted her head, sensing his confusion. "Did you know my mommy?" she asked softly. Alexander forced a shaky smile. "Yes, I did. A very long time ago." Before he could say more, Elena's teacher called her name from down the hall. She waved, grinning, and ran off, leaving the billionaire frozen, staring at the photo that had just come alive. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. His mind replayed the girl's voice, her eyes, her mother's name. He called his assistant. "Find everything you can on a woman named Clara Brooks. She used to live near the East Side about 6 years ago." By morning, a file sat on his desk. The information was sobering. Single mother. Works as a cleaner. Late on rent payments. Has one daughter, age 5. He sighed deeply. The woman who once gave him kindness when he had nothing was now struggling to survive. Without hesitation, he made a call. "I want her cafe cleaned, renovated, and restocked. Quietly. No publicity. Tell them it's a gift from the foundation." For the first time in years, Alexander's generosity wasn't for headlines, it was for her. 2 days later, Alexander showed up at Elena's school under the guise of checking on his foundation's projects. He spotted her on the playground, laughing, her pigtails bouncing as she played tag. When she noticed him, her face lit up. "Mr. Alexander," she called, running toward him. "Did you find out why my mommy's picture is in your house?" He smiled faintly. "I did. She once helped me when I was lost." Elena's eyes widened. "Mommy helps everyone, even stray cats." Her laughter broke something open inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. They sat on a bench as she told him about her school, her mom's hard work, and how they sometimes shared one meal so her grandmother could eat too. Alexander listened quietly, every word tightening his chest. Before she left, he handed her a small silver locket. Inside was a photo of a rose, the same flower Clara had given him years ago when he'd lost all hope. "Give this to your mom," he said softly. "Tell her an old friend said, thank you." That evening, Clara received the locket. She stared at it, trembling. Inside was the rose, a symbol she hadn't seen in years. Her eyes filled with tears. She remembered the night vividly, the storm, the stranger soaked in rain outside her door. She'd taken him in, fed him soup, told him life was worth more than money. He'd left before dawn, leaving only that rose on her windowsill. Now, that same rose had come back to her, through her daughter. The next day, she went to Elena's school hoping to find the man who sent it. Instead, she was told that Mr. Steele was visiting again to speak to the children. When their eyes met across the classroom, time seemed to stop. Alexander stood, older, wealthier, but unmistakably the same man she once helped. "Clara," he whispered. She covered her mouth, tears spilling over. "You're that man from the storm." He nodded slowly. "And you're the woman who changed my life." After the event, Alexander invited Clara and Elena to his office. The little girl sat drawing at the corner of his desk while the adult spoke. "I've never forgotten what you did for me," Alexander began. "You gave me kindness when I had nothing to give back. Now it's my turn." Clara shook her head quickly. "I didn't help you expecting anything in return." "I know," he said, smiling gently. "That's what makes it worth remembering." He slid a document across the table. "This is a proposal, a full scholarship for Elena, plus employment at one of my company's offices. You'll never have to worry about bills again." Clara's eyes widened. "Mr. Steele, that's too much." He leaned back, his voice soft. "No, Clara. It's just enough." At that moment, Elena ran up and hugged his leg. "Thank you, Mr. Alexander," she squealed. He froze, then gently placed his hand on her head. "You have your mother's heart." Over the next few weeks, Alexander visited often. He helped Elena with her reading, dropped by the cafe Clara worked at, and even funded a new playground in her neighborhood, all quietly, without cameras or attention. People began whispering. Some praised his kindness. Others accused Clara of manipulation. But she ignored them. Her focus was on giving Elena a better future. One afternoon, Elena handed Alexander a drawing. It showed 3 stick figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl holding hands in front of a big house. "That's us," she said proudly. "Because you're nice, and Mommy smiles more now." Alexander's throat tightened. In that innocent picture, he saw what he'd missed all his life: family. What would you do if you discovered someone with incredible heart and talent living in such difficult circumstances? Would you step in and help, or stay on the sidelines? Let me know your thoughts below. I read every comment. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Alexander and the Brooks family deepened in ways no one expected. Every Saturday morning, Alexander's black car would pull up in front of their modest home. He'd take Elena to the park, teaching her how to feed the ducks and telling her stories about faraway countries she'd never heard of. Clara often watched from the window, smiling but uncertain. Her heart was grateful, yet afraid. She'd seen too many promises fade. One day, Alexander noticed her hesitation. "You still don't trust me, do you?" Clara hesitated. "It's not that. I just don't understand why you're doing all this for us." He looked at her quietly. "Because years ago, when I was nobody, you reminded me that I was still human. I want to return that feeling, not out of pity, but gratitude." For the first time, she smiled fully. "Then thank you for remembering me." Elena's laughter became the light that filled Alexander's once empty mansion. He'd come home from long meetings and find her drawings stuck on his office walls, crooked hearts and smiling faces under a big sun. "Mommy says the sun always rises again," she told him once. He smiled. "Your mom's right. She's always been." Slowly, the billionaire who had once lived behind walls began to change. His staff whispered about it, how he now smiled more, how he donated more quietly, how he stopped caring about awards. Clara noticed it too. The coldness in his eyes had been replaced by warmth, the kind that only comes from love rediscovered. But not everyone saw it that way. Rumors spread quickly. "Did you hear? The billionaire's spending all that money on his cleaner's family. People like her always find ways to trap men like him. Maybe the kid isn't even hers." Whispers became stories. Stories became headlines. A local tabloid published an article. "Billionaire's secret family. Alexander Steele's mysterious bond with poor single mother." By morning, cameras surrounded Clara's workplace. Her manager frowned. "Clara, I'm sorry, but this is bad for business. I can't have this attention." She lost her job that day. When Alexander arrived at her door, she was sitting on the floor, holding Elena, tears streaming down her face. "You shouldn't have helped us," she whispered. "Now everyone thinks I'm using you." Alexander's jaw tightened. "They don't know the truth. But I'll fix this." Clara shook her head. "Please, Just leave us out of it." 4 days, Alexander tried to reach her, calls, messages, visits, but Clara refused to see him. She needed time to protect her daughter from the noise. Meanwhile, the world speculated. His investors worried about reputation. His board demanded he issue a statement. One morning, his PR manager entered the office. "Sir, you need to distance yourself. The press is running wild." Alexander stared out the window, the city below glimmering like 1,000 lies. "Do you know what's funny?" he said quietly. "People believe rumors faster than they believe kindness." He turned, his voice hardening. "I won't abandon them again. Not this time." One evening, a small envelope arrived at Alexander's mansion. The handwriting was clumsy and written in crayon. "Dear Mr. Alexander, Mommy cries a lot lately, but I told her you're still our friend. I miss coming to your big house and the ducks. Don't be sad. Mommy says storms don't last forever. Love, Elena." Alexander's eyes filled with tears. He folded the letter gently, placed it in his coat pocket, and made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, he held a press conference outside his company's headquarters. Dozens of reporters gathered, expecting denial or damage control. Instead, Alexander spoke with calm conviction. "Years ago, when I had nothing, a woman named Clara Brooks helped me, not for money, not for fame, but out of compassion. If helping her now makes me guilty, then I'm proud to be guilty of kindness. And if you believe a child's happiness is a scandal, then maybe it's not me who needs to change, but us as a society." The crowd went silent. Cameras clicked, but for once, it wasn't gossip they captured, it was grace. That evening, Clara opened her door to find Alexander standing outside, drenched in rain, just like the night they first met years ago. He looked at her softly. "You helped me in a storm once. Let me return the favor." She broke down, tears mixing with the rain. "You don't have to." He interrupted gently. "I want to. Not because I owe you, but because you and Elena are the closest thing to family I've ever had." Elena peeked from behind her mother and smiled. "I told you he wouldn't forget us, Mommy." They hugged him tightly, a picture of warmth under cold rain. In the weeks that followed, Alexander officially launched a new project, the Kindness Initiative, a program providing jobs and education for single parents in low-income communities. He hired Clara as its coordinator, knowing no one could teach compassion better than someone who had lived it. Elena became the foundation's little mascot, her laughter echoing through boardrooms and charity events alike. The same people who once doubted now admired. But Alexander didn't care about the applause, he cared about the peace that had returned to their small family. Have you ever faced obstacles while trying to help someone you cared about? What did you do when the world didn't understand your intentions? Share your experience below. Your story might inspire someone else to keep going.